What conspiracy theory do you completely believe is true? Well, the government is listening to everyone's phone calls, and reading our emails was once considered a conspiracy theory, and we all know how that turned out. Many years ago, I walked into a Barnes & Noble and spotted a guy sitting alone at a card table near the entrance, the table stacked with books. We had a nice chat. He told me how he got started writing the book, his first. He was teaching at a prep school where the Secret Service showed up at 7 AM and banged on a dorm door. The student had emailed the night before, words to the effect that someone should shoot the president. That got the author interested in the NSA, and he wrote a novel about it. While researching the book, he was emailing with various ex-NSA people to get background on the agency. One time he emailed, should we be encrypting these emails? He received a reply stating, 1. There isn't any encryption you could do that would hinder the NSA. 2. I'm not telling you anything I shouldn't. And 3. The plutonium arrives on Thursday. Praise Allah. Dan Brown before he hit it big. There isn't any encryption you could do that would hinder the NSA. Don't promote this nonsense. The NSA has a lot of resources, sure, but encryption is math. If your key requires 200k years to decrypt, there's nothing the NSA can do about it. All that stupid stuff shared on Facebook is just a way for people to mine your information for forgotten passwords, resets and stuff. Things like, bet no one remembers the street they grew up on. I'll wait. Or, what would your name be if you took your mom's name instead of your dad's? Actually, how hacking is mainly done, lol. Not much hacking into the mainframe, mostly just social engineering. Tommy Wiseau is DB Cooper. For those of you who don't know, DB Cooper is a famous American thief aboard a plane flying from Seattle, Washington to Mexico City before the plane was over Reno, Nevada. DB Cooper robbed everyone on the plane, took all of the parachutes, and jumped out of the plane, and was never seen again. Nobody knew his name, and he spoke with a strange accent. Tommy Wiseau showed up seemingly randomly, with a ton of money, has been said to be older than he says he is, and speaks with a strange accent. At one point people found a ton of money which was said to be DB's ransom money or stash, and the guy they were investigating didn't look much like him, and the evidence was never convincing and the whole attempt was some History Channel bullcrap. Tommy Wiseau however fits the bill. In the skydiving community this comes up every so often. DB Cooper died in the jump. He jumped into heavy forest at night. Even with a round canopy that's dodgy as frick. He had basically no control over where he landed. Even if he landed safely he had no way of knowing where he was, and thus how to get out. Wasn't some of the money found buried or submerged somewhere? Indicating that he did survive. This one pertains to my university, but some people may have the same experiences with this. So students who choose my university send applications in by December. The entire COVID shutdown happens in March, around the same time university acceptances are starting to be sent out. Each first year student has guaranteed residence. Everyone is wondering what the new teaching model will be, and it's announced that it's mixed 30% in person, 70% online. At this point, if you're in first year and all your courses are online, why pay for residence? You can do class online. But the university sees these discussions and know they'll lose a lot of money if they don't have students in residence. So what is announced? Almost every first year has at least one person class, meaning they have to be on campus, meaning they have to live in residence. IDK if this makes sense to anyone, but I thought it was interesting. This is true. I deferred my application this year because I just didn't deem it worthy if it was going to be mostly online. May have shot myself in the foot though, because God knows how bad it'll be next year. I hate to say this one, because it's probably the most ridiculous, but I genuinely believe that Trump family being time travelers is possible. The background behind the conspiracy is somewhat uncanny and all the sources are incredibly legitimate, but I never hear about it. Pretty much, it starts with an author from the late 1800s, Ingersoll Lockwood, who wrote a handful of books. The first is a fantasy book called The Marvelous Adventures of Baron Trump about a Baron Trump who was mentored by a Don. Baron and Don are technically titles in the book, but also the name of Trump and his youngest son. The book touches on some issues with power and vanity by leaders in power and creates a huge parallel between fantasy and generally crappy/arrogant people. Not a lot of connection there, except the names and essentially describing Trump in the fantasy characters. The other important book is the one that hits home, The Last President, by the exact same author, is about a wealthy man in New York who is elected president, but he wasn't expected to and people are incredibly upset, rioting, etc., mostly over capitalists taking over the country. Chapter 1 literally opens up with riots overpowering police after an election on November 3, 1896, saying that the Fifth Avenue Hotel will be the first to feel the fury of the mob. Now, some connections beyond the obvious. November 3rd, 2020 happens to be election day this year. The Fifth Avenue Hotel mentioned in the book has been replaced by none other than Trump Tower. The secretary in the book is Leif Pence. Coincidence, right? Well, fast forward a bit, because in the 1940s before he died, Nikola Tesla had made tons of other invention claims, like perfecting his death beam, progress in a time machine, etc. Also during that time, the FBI had an office of alien property like foreign not UFOs, from which the assistant FBI director Foxworth had sent people to seize all of Tesla's research shortly after he died, in hopes some of it may be useful. Well, after seizing it, they hired none other than Dr. John Trump, Donald Trump's uncle, to solely analyze all the paperwork under federal custody to keep privacy. Dr. Trump publicly claimed that the research was only speculative and did not include new, sound, workable principles or methods for realizing such results. The Tesla papers were never published, and, after a few decades, majority of his research was deemed lost by both the US government and the Soviet Union, and what remains is somewhere in Yugoslavia, I believe at a museum. So essentially, the idea is that Trump's uncle discovered time travel through Tesla's research, and hid/copied what was valuable or dangerous to keep out of government control. Then him, Barron, or someone, or all, in the family has used it to create the wealth that the Trump family has. Theoretically, time travel may not work like we see in movies, so what they can accomplish could be limited to a few good choices and leaving their mark behind in these books. Is it possible the author was the time traveler? Honestly, considering the evidence, it seems far more likely, granted its likeliness in my mind is still less than 1%, that this is the case than the other way around. United 93 was shot down. This is possible. When I worked on fighters, a coworker came from a unit whose planes responded on 9/11. He claimed one of the aircraft came back one missile light and the pilot spoke to no one and was immediately taken to debrief. He said the pilots would never speak about what happened that day. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm not even sure I believe him. Every F-16 that left Otis or Langley was not armed on that day. However, there were fully loaded F-15 Strike Eagles that were on the West Coast. So, I'll take the phone calls and the black box recordings as evidence the passengers attempted to take over. 5 minutes too late of United 93. The hijacker was flying that sucker at treetop level at 500 miles per hour. And those brave souls on 93 prevented any civilians on the ground any harm. RIP. Carol Baskin didn't kill her husband. I believe he was heavily involved with drugs and that's the reason why everything he touched turned to gold. I think he flew drugs over to Mexico and it all went wrong and never made it back. Yeah, I mean, people say oh she described the best way to get a tiger to eat a person. But if you watch that clip in context, it's not nearly as damning as it sounds. For one, she was responding to the allegation that she fed her ex-husband to her tigers and said, what am I gonna do? Just dump sardine oil on the body and throw it over the fence? She was trying to say the idea is ridiculous. You don't need specific first-hand knowledge of feeding human bodies to tigers to make a comment like that. It's a common trope that cats love fish, and it was the first fish-based product that came to mind. The creators really did her dirty that whole show. Ghislaine Maxwell was one of the most prolific posters on Reddit and had an account that was, at the time, the 8th highest karma in the history of the site. The account stopped posting the day that Maxwell was arrested and has had many notable posting absences that coincide with Maxwell's important life moments, notably her mother dying and the Reddit party that Ellen Pao mentioned seeing Ghislaine at. The account mentioned having a birthday in late December after the 21st, while Maxwell's is given as the 25th. The account often posted regarding the legalization of child sexography and child protection laws, but never mentioned Epstein despite the political subs they moderated, while certain other mods have made claims that they are still in contact with the account. Various other inconsistencies seem to invalidate that, such as them claiming that they were from a certain country, but not knowing that country's national dish. Not mentioning too many specifics to prevent brigading, but you can find more info elsewhere. To be fair, if you ask me my country's national dish, I'd probably not be able to answer that too. I didn't even know countries had national dishes. Going into the 1988 Republican National Convention, there was much speculation as to who George H.W. Bush would choose as his running mate. Prognosticators had as many as 30 realistic names on their list. Bush chose obscure Indiana Senator Dan Quayle, who quickly made himself known as one of the dimmer bulbs in DC. The court is that Bush, being neck deep in the Iran-Contra scandal, wanted someone far too stupid to ever be allowed into the presidency, thus protecting himself from possible impeachment. Granted, the 21st century has allowed complete morons into the Oval Office, but the Cold War was a completely different and dangerous time. The third shot that hit JFK was fired by a Secret Service member. But it was entirely an accident. The motorcade surrounding him was full of Secret Service. Some were standing up on the seats. When the first shot was fired, they were all on high alert, fingers on the trigger, looking around. The drivers all hit the brakes. A guy standing up in the back lurched forward and pulled the trigger by accident. This shot hit the president. He had already been hit twice and was pretty much toast, so it didn't matter. But they covered it up. I like it as a conspiracy theory because it reduces such an important mystery to a pure human accident, which is what a lot of historical events are. The Rebecca Black song Friday is about the JFK assassination. The driver of the car he was assassinated in's name was Samuel Kickin. Kickin in the front seat, sittin' in the back seat. The assassination occurred on a Friday, and when he was shot the Secret Service yelled at Jackie Kennedy to get down on Friday. Parts about the Cold War and the spread of communism are referenced. Everybody's Russian. And to top it all off, in the hotel, that morning JFK declined a breakfast of sausage, eggs, and toast for a bowl of bran flakes instead. Got to have my bowl, got to have cereal. Also, the following Monday JFK was supposed to sign a bill into law, requiring all public schools to provide bus transportation for their students. Got to catch my bus. There are so many JFK comments on this thread, but this one takes the cake. There were others involved with Kennedy's death. He clearly had enemies. Same with his brother RFK. Even the Kennedy family doesn't believe Robert was killed by a lone busboy. The US government might have also played a role in the assassination of Martin Luther King. He's considered a civil rights icon today, but the government actually hated him back in the 60s and viewed him as a troublesome radical. When he died, they were just happy to appropriate him as a martyr. The DNC screwed with the Iowa caucus results to prevent Sanders from getting an outright victory and momentum heading into New Hampshire. The folks in charge of the vote counting app were linked to the Buttigieg camp, for goodness sake. Gore won Florida in 2000. George W. Bush was not legitimately elected. The royals had Diana killed. She was a thorn in their backside, gained them negative publicity, and they thought she was an embarrassment and bad influence on Prince Charles. Most of the media is deliberately designed to instill a culture of mass fear and low self-esteem to get us to participate in a cycle of consumerism and preoccupied over dumb crap that isn't important. I remember when conspiracy theories were confined to obscure, late-night radio shows like Art Bell. They were interesting and fun, but never really intersected with real life too much. Since 9/11 and the rise of social media, there are conspiracy theories about everything, and they are having an increasing influence on politics' everyday life. In fact, a lot of them are actively promoted to have just such an effect. Bill didn't cheat on Hillary. They have an open marriage, where they can do what they want whilst traveling around for work. Reason for the infidelity lie. It's easier for the American population to accept a president making a mistake in fidelity than to accept a swinging president/first lady. The thing about conspiracy theories is that they assume people are a lot smarter than they collectively are. And they also assume that a lot more people can keep a secret, let alone a bunch of them, than is demonstrably possible. The anti-plastic straw movement is an attempt by corporations to shirk a reduction in plastic consumption on consumers, thus creating an artificial demand for straw alternatives. Pigeons are drones. You ever see a baby pigeon? Alright then. I actually have, and they're really quite ugly. Be grateful you've never seen one. That the Trump campaign knowingly accepted Russian help to win. Funny how some conspiracy-minded people can't seem to see an actual conspiracy as it unfolds. IDK, but all this kid diddling being covered up is concerning. Russia is actively engaged in social media warfare to make Americans lose faith in the political process, so that regardless of who's elected, the American people don't accept it. That some diseases are man-made by the government to control the population. That China is censoring every aspect of the United States, especially paying Reddit to ban pictures or any mention of their president, Winnie the Pooh, and that's a fact. Colleges aren't free and healthcare is crap, so that poor young suckers keep enlisting in the army for those benefits. I believe if the government gave free college and healthcare, barely anybody would actually join, to a certain extent. It's my own, but I'm convinced. I work on the social media side in a large e-commerce company. Facebook is trying to get TikTok banned because it's the next big platform. A few months ago we had an advertisement meeting with TikTok employees. They showed us charts and numbers. In July, TikTok had around 855 million monthly active users, with the average user spending around 80 minutes a day on TikTok. That is insane on a per average user. I think Facebook is in bed with the government, possibly even selling our data to them, and Facebook/Instagram usage is trending down, and since TikTok is Chinese owned and can't be bought, Facebook is leveraging the government to ban it, while tricking everyone into believing that TikTok is a spy device. When Instagram was getting popular, Facebook bought them. WhatsApp was getting popular, so they bought them too. They can't do that with TikTok. Facebook knows they're headed downwards, they see the trend. So I believe they are pushing the government to ban it, while brainwashing the public into believing that TikTok is nothing more than a spy device in your pocket for the Chinese government. TikTok is seriously not that bad, and after spending time on the back end, and on the platform, and talking with employees, they are trying to make money on advertising, not through some conspiracy foreign tracking spy device. I've seen the posts here on Reddit that scream a strata thing that try to sound legit, but really have no evidence. Listen, if a foreign government is trying to spy on another country's users, they are not doing it through watching teenagers do the WAP dance. Facebook and Instagram is terrifying about what they know about you and how their algorithms can predict your purchasing habits before you even know you want a certain product, not even counting how the platforms track you physically and digitally. Facebook is really who you should be scared of. Screw Facebook. That there is only one Olsen twin who moves very quickly back and forth to create an afterimage. Ronald Reagan purposely introduced crack cocaine into predominantly black neighborhoods. Aliens exist. In the late 90s or early 20s, NASA got a signal from space for a split second. No one knew who his signal was coming from, and never got it again. While Lee Harvey Oswald did shoot and hit JFK twice, the final killing shot came from the Secret Service vehicle directly behind the president's vehicle, by accident. The agent carrying the Secret Service's one and only AR-15 at the time stood up when JFK was shot the first 2 times and was thrown back in his seat when the car lurched forward, causing him to accidentally shoot the president in the back of the head. The poorly spelled names on Starbucks cups are intentional and are designed to be posted on social media for free advertising. You eat the red Smarties last to turn back to normal the color of your tongue. Obama turned my frog gay with chemicals. that people post this question on this sub every few months to calm a farm.